Welcome to Analytic Geometry 5, Graphing Lines. Okay, so in algebra we learned how to graph lines. We did it quite a bit, but we also learned that there's different forms of a line. The most common is slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Let's review for a second what the letters mean. Y is your output. M is your slope. This is your rise over run that we learned from the last analytic geometry, or reviewed, I should say, from the last analytic geometry. X is your input. And then B is the y coordinate of where the line crosses the y axis. So whenever you're talking about the y axis, you're talking about when x is 0, y will be that number B. Okay, so just a reminder of what all those letters stand for. So input would be x. So you pick numbers, put in for x, you output y values. Okay, so here's just a review. The slope is our rise over run, which in this case, the m is 2. And our y-intercept, remember the sign stays with that number, so that would be a -3. We can go ahead and graph this now. We don't even have to come up with a set of points like we did in Analytic Geometry 4. We already have a built-in point at 0, -3, because that is the y-intercept. So there I plotted it. Now, since this is rise over run, this means 2 over 1, okay, because it's a whole number 2. If it was 1 over 2, we would have a slope of 1/2. Okay, so I can rise 2 and run 1. So there's another point. Now, I only need 2 points to graph a line, but I always want you to check and do 3. When you're doing your exercises 1 through 5, I want to see 3 points for sure. So I can go up 2 again and go over 1, and do you see how it also passes through the point 2, 1? Okay, the slideshow only shows you 2 because I only need 2, but make sure that your slope stays the same all the way through the line. Okay, so let's do a practice one. Find the equation of the line whose slope is 2/3 and the intercept is 0, 5. So I already know my m is 2/3. So y equals 2/3 x, and then I have my y value of my intercept is plus 5. Okay. Now I need to find the equation of a line when I have the slope is -3 and the intercept is 2. Same thing, I'm literally plugging and chugging right here. The slope is -3, which is my m. My b is a +2. This one has a few more steps because now I don't have m. I don't have a slope. I do actually have the y-intercept, okay? Because it says 0, -2. That means when x is 0, y is -2. But I don't have a slope, so I've got to find that first. And remember, the formula for that is y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. So I'm going to pick points. I actually chose 0, -2 as my point 2, and I'm going to plug that in. So my y2 was -2, my x2 was 0, and then my y was 4, and my my y1 was 4, my x1 was 3, and when I do that math, I get -6 over -3, which a negative divided by a negative is a +2. So now I know my m. Okay, so step 2 is to use the point slope form. Now we technically don't have to do this step because I already have the y-intercept. The 0, -2 is the y-intercept. So I already know the slope, I can plug in that number. But I want to go ahead and show you the steps. What if I didn't have that point, that 0, -2? What if I had another point that wasn't the y-intercept? So we're going to go ahead and do this a little bit of the long way so that you know what to do if you have 2 points that aren't very helpful. Okay, so we already would do the slope the same way. And then point slope form is the y minus y1 equals slope, m, times, in parentheses, x minus x1. Okay, so the y1 and the x1 is a point. The x and y stay x and y because that's your input output. and then the slope you're just going to plug in. So I went ahead and chose the first point, the 3, 4 point, plugged those in, and then we already found the slope was 2. Now I need to use the distributive property and multiply that 2 times the x minus 3, which gives me 2x minus 6, and then I need to get y by itself. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and then I get my y-intercept form. This is my y equals mx plus b, and that's your answer. Okay, and there is no summary to submit for me. So for your whisk, you have notes for your watch, and you'll still have the question, if you have a question. The question today is optional. I know that I never say that, but today your question is optional. So you should just have notes and then the 5 exercises when you come to class. And I'll see you then.